we can share this with uh, people who either join the class late or uh, can't make it tonight. So in the way that this class is put out in the announcement is that we're going to have live sessions. And it makes it sound like I think Monday and Wednesday we're going to have live sessions. However, I found out I've been teaching this class for 5 or 6 semesters, and some of the sections are online and there's no live session. And so I found out recently from the administration that I do not need to do the live sessions every week. So the live sessions, they're not going to be mandatory and we will not do them every week. And so this is going to be like an online class where if you need something from me, text me and we can set up a meeting and that's fine. But most of the time, we're not going to do the live sessions. So just because what happens is the first session like this, everyone's here. Uh, by the third or the fourth session, we're down to like 3 or 4 people. And then those 3 or 4 people stick it out kind of the full semester. And it can be fun sometimes, but too often I think it it's not as effective as it could be if you're just doing it yourself. So there are a couple of things I want to cover with everyone at the beginning, and so we'll cover that. And then if people want to watch that. And so if you want to schedule something with me and we can go over, you want to cover whatever you want to cover, we can set up a Zoom meeting that way. And so hopefully that's not deflating someone's expectations. So there's a lot of video content already in this class. So between that and reading the book, I think we'll be just fine. I do think a face-to-face class, because this was originally set up as a face-to-face class, there are some things that I think would be more fun when we share projects, but we're already sharing the projects, that there's discussion set up for each project. And so I think good with that. So does anyone have any questions at this point? Having any issues? So um, and you can also, if you have a question, you can just put it in the chat too. And I'm trying to keep tabs on that. So when we do a live session, if you click here on this is where they will show up. I recorded this last semester, but this is a good refresher on how to access Adobe Creative Cloud. So I don't know how many, some of you, this may be your first semester at Slick. And so every one of you should have a free every one of you should have free access to Adobe Creative Cloud. So in your computers, I'll show you what it looks like. It looks like this when you install it, and then you can show under here under apps. And the ones that say open, these are ones that I've downloaded and I use. The ones that say install, I have not downloaded. Um, so you also, with your student ID, you have access to some of the apps for your phone. There is, why do I forget the name? Oh, so Adobe Express. Adobe Express, well, this says Adobe Express Photos, but Adobe Express is similar to Canva. And so you can use some of the tools there. This this will show you this video here, and I don't have the sound turned on, but it will show you how to get access to. So this is this is showing right here when you try to access Creative Cloud, you've got your personal account and your company or school account. And so now it's not a requirement that you actually use any of the tools in Creative Cloud in this class, but you can. And over the last couple of semesters, they have added more of the content that we can use Creative Cloud with. I mean, sorry, more of the projects we can use Creative Cloud with. However, even with that said, we can use digital tools. One of the things I would like everyone to start out with is part of the design process is you need to work out what you're trying to do, and that I would and through sketching, and I would like you to do that on paper. And you don't have to have special paper for it. You can use line paper in a out of a composition book. You can do your sketching and your idea kind of formulating on any piece of paper. You could just get regular printer paper and do your sketching on that. There is not a huge requirement for that. Now, one of the things that I like about this class is it does give us the opportunity to use art tools. And so if you like art tools, there is, and I haven't received the email yet from Blick, but Blick usually will give students discounts uh, at the beginning of the semester, somewhere for the 10 or 15%. And if you want to go to the Blick in Sugar House, they're on 21st South, there's the option to do that. So, and there is a list if we if you're looking through the syllabus, let's see, trying to see where this is. It's in a couple of places. See if it's here. Oh, this is one thing we can talk about since we're here, is the textbook for this class. I think they may be still selling it in the bookstore, but they may not. The textbook for this class you can access through My Materials over here on the right. I'm going to open up in a new tab. And then it should open up to this Cortex. And I think the student experience is close to this one. I'm going to skip this. I'm going to go under the shelf here. Cortex is the one, and you should be able to access the book, this Design Basics through here. Now you're totally welcome to get your own book on this. They I have seen them as cheap as like $20, but I don't know if they're still doing this, and we've been using this for quite a while. This Cortex is the third online version that we've had access to as a class. This one is the best version. Some of these links work in this version, where in previous versions they didn't work. So, and you can actually copy out of this book a little bit if you like this, and then it says copy text, but you're limited to how much you can copy out of the book. And most of the time, I don't think you're going to need to do that. So this is kind of how we navigate through the book. So I am looking for it, and it may just be on. Let's actually look at the syllabus. Now there is just in the last couple of semesters, they have this used to be the syllabus, and we still use it here in this. Let's see if the okay, so here's the required course supplies. So if you have some of these things, you don't need to get these. Um, if you want an excuse to buy more supplies, this is a good time to do it. This first week of the semester, I should have a discount. But this will help you do your projects for this class. Um, so there is also the simple syllabus, and the simple syllabus does not have it has some of the basic information, and it has and I am not sure if these are correct, the dates, because when I first imported the content for this class, I am not sure the dates are correct on this, but the dates will be correct if you go into the module section and the dates that it's showing in here as you go through there. And from this point of view, and you'll see your assignments popping up over here on the side, those are correct. Just I'm not sure about the simple syllabus. That's something that the college started doing a couple of semesters ago. And so we do what we can to keep that going. So one of the things that I want to make students aware of is all the resources as a Slick student that you have access to. Um,
Yeah.
so let's
Oh.
look here.
Yeah.
So here's some Adobe help. You can also get, if you're having problems with Canvas, last semester we had a couple of times there was kind of an outage on Canvas where people couldn't take quizzes or things like that. There is a number you can call for Canvas for students that's available 24/7. So if you're working at like 1 o'clock in the morning and you're having a problem with Canvas, you can reach out to Canvas and they they will help you. And you can find that through the help right here. You click on help. Here's the faculty, but the student line. You can call this 24/7 during holidays and everything. You can call this line and they will help you with if you're having an issue with Canvas. And the good thing about calling them is they can get in and they can see where you are, what you're doing, and they can see if there's any kind of an issue. And I've done it many times. I've called Canvas when I'm having a problem. The person can get in and give me feedback on how to do that. So, so there are these other um, there are other options here that you can get access to. There's people that help at school, at both of the I know I know Redwood, the Jordan campus, and the South City campus. They all have people there that can help you lots of times. Lots of times during the day. I'm not sure how late they go at night, but they can give you help if you need help with writing and with some of these classes, or especially if you're trying to get help with Adobe or something like that, they can help you there. So you can always reach out to me, but there's other things there. One of the things that I don't know how many students know, and I'm looking for, and I'm just going to go to this Slick. So if you go to the Slick, I don't actually want this page. Library.
Okay.
So there are libraries at, I know for sure at Redwood and South City campus. You can access, there are, and I may need to get into this, but at the library, you can check out books. They at the library they have the books for this class, and so you can get in. And there's also a copy at the South City Library, and it says it somewhere in the if you want to get access to a physical book. So these are the building maps. I'm gonna, oh, here we go. Here's the library. This is what I want looking for. Oh, so they have one at the Jordan campus, South City campus, and the Taylorsville. So these is put, so you may never go to the library, but there are still resources here that you can get access to if you're looking for, if you're doing research. Um, and it's interesting. A few years ago, there was a book came out called Hillbilly Elegy that I'd heard a lot about, and I looked at the local libraries, the Salt Lake City Library and the Salt Lake County Library, and there were huge, like long waiting lists for them. But I went over to the Slick Library, and they had the book, and I was able to check out the book and read it. So fast forward a couple of years, that guy's our vice president now, which I was really surprised when I found out he was the vice president. But it was interesting that I was able to get the book there at it was at the Redwood campus when I found that book. There is, let's, they've still got it. I did not see it. They used to have another resource where you could check out technical books, and it changed. Let's see. Yeah. It used to be on this page, but I don't see it. So they may not be doing it anymore. So before Google was that big of a thing, and when I went to school 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago, they had access to technical books that we could get. And for about a year after I graduated, we had access to those technical books. And I think it's about the same here for these, if you want to get access to these research databases. With the internet, and now we've got all these kinds of AI tools, this these are probably used less than they used to be, but these are still here. So another thing that they don't talk about a whole lot is that every student has access to Microsoft with their Office 365 account. You have access to licenses for Word. So if you go under here, you can go under more apps. Let's see if this is still the same. So right here is a list of apps that you can use with your uh, uh, with your with your Salt Lake City Community College's access. So this is, I just want to see Word, and I'm just going to put the Word. So this is the online version, but you can install all of these on your own computer, and actually up to 5 computers, you can install Word and Excel. And the reason I bring up Word is because if you're doing research papers, and I really should look through. we're just going to do a blank document here. If you're doing research, you can use this. I am. You can use the citations and bibliography to create an. I should have already had one of these pulled up, but let's see. A new source. This right here is a great way if a professor wants citations made, you can manage them through this. You can set them up. Oh, see, here we go. Oh, and there's ways to do this online, but they've actually added all of these in here since the last time I checked. But you have all these MLA, um, APA, and some of these. I think the MLA and APA are probably the most, at least the ones that I know most. So Word can really help you out, especially with creating these bibliographies and citations, references, works cited. If you wanted, it will format these things so um, you don't have to worry about doing that yourself. You can manage that here. That's the reason I bring this up because that's going to be helpful in any class that you do research. One of the things too is now with as easy as it is to get access to images from so many places that are free, in your student, as you're using images, just make sure that you reference where you got those images. Like, so if you created them through ChatGPT or you created them through Gemini's Nano Banana, just say, this was created by AI. Or if you got it off of a website, just give the full uh, attribution to where you got that. So, like for instance, with Pexels is a great place to get free images. And so just say like, oh, I really like this image. So if you click on the free download, it just says, here is the attribution that you need to give to the person that you're creating this, that you're like if you're using this for an assignment, make sure to say, hey, I got this off of Pexels. And then they give you I'll bring up a, so it gives you right here what you would need to use as in your reference. So you can just put that in your reference, like, okay, this is where I got the picture. So there are lots of resources. So if you're lacking for something, if you're having problems with your computer, you can go onto one of the school campuses. You can also go to the libraries. I know that the Salt Lake County libraries, they have a creative space in 4 or 5 of the county libraries that have Macs and Windows that also have Adobe Creative Cloud installed on there. But they have 3D printers and uh, vinyl cutters. They have heat presses. They have sewing machines. So there's all kinds of projects you can do. If you're doing the 3D printing, the cost is super reasonable. And for the paper and things there, it's so those are resources that we don't especially the county and the city library, that we don't list in anything here, but you can use their resources to do some of your assignments. So one of the things I want to talk about in this class is there is an assignment, and I that I want to talk to because I not as many students understand this assignment, so I'm just going to talk about it right at the beginning. So there is a chapter on the one of the principles of design, or one of the elements of design, called line. And so they talk about this in here. I'm just gonna go to the assignment. Uh, this is value, so we're gonna say, okay. This is the one assignment in during the semester that I think needs some explanation. So we've got some examples of what students have done in the past. For this semester, we're doing the lion. So you'll see, so every semester we change up the animal that we're using. We use this panda, we've got this elephant, and part of there is this value worksheet. So the intent of this is that you're going to have light to dark. So you're going to have some of the squares. There's this assignment value worksheet. Let's see if I can open it up in a. Yeah, so here's the worksheet that goes along with this. So we want light to dark. So you can see this here. You want light pattern over to dark patterns and use these. So the intent of this is you have to turn in this value worksheet first. And then later on, you're going to take a grid and you're going to overlay this picture. You're going to separate that, and then you're going to figure out which squares in that grid get what value. And so we would like what we're expecting is you're going to take, your light value in lighter areas and your dark value in darker areas to get what we're seeing here. And so some of the people have done this. They've used their patterns and their textures to fill this out, and we don't see so much of the grid here. And then there's other students that have used this and you can see that this is cool, that the way they've done this. So as you're creating this value worksheet, say, what patterns could I use to create these designs? And the reason I'm doing this at the beginning is I hope everybody watches this, because this is the most misunderstood assignment. And I think if we just talk about it right now and I explain this process, I'm hoping that it will clear up some of the confusion with this. So one of the things about this class too is, because it's an art class, sometimes I think students think it doesn't take as much time. And I've found through my own experience that the more intense the art classes get, I will see if I can find some more examples of the line assignment and put it in there. But one of the things too is we don't want to give you too many examples, because we want you to be creative with what you're doing with this. And every semester I see some really creative perspectives on what we're doing. One of the things that you need to understand too is the design process that we talk about in this class. It's about working within the constraints. And then how do we how do we stay within the constraints and be creative within those constraints? Now, as an artist, and I towards the beginning of my career, I worked more with people on designing logos and things like that. And I was always amazed at the lack of understanding that people had with design. They're like, I want this particular design. And I'm just looking and going, functionally, this just doesn't work very well. I think we should go. And a lot of times I just got to the point where I just didn't really, I didn't try to even give, and at this point in my career, I do not give anyone advice on design because they have their own ideas on what they think. And so if they want me to help them out with the design, I say, either you do it yourself or you give me some examples and we'll start from there. And the only advice I give is, you know, if you're open to something, let's find a really good designer. And I'm not going to say I'm a really good designer. There's certain things, like I do software design, and I am not on the front end of that. So my artistic skills come with ceramics, and I get to do my own thing with that. And so with these assignments, there is a serious amount of constraint that's put on that. But understand that when we get out into the real world, whether in any company that we're working for and we're going through this design process, there's going to be some serious constraints that we need to live within. So if you're an architect and you're building buildings, you have to know about insulation, you have to know about how things are wired. There's all these constraints that we live within. And so as if you're doing art design for someone or for a company, there's going to be some constraints that go along with that too. A lot of times it's just the customer comes up with these arbitrary constraints and you have to stay within those. Like, oh, I want to use, black and yellow and, light pink or something. And you're like, you're selling motorcycles. I'm not sure how we're going to work that in, but so those are the types of things that constraints that customers come up with. Like there was a physical therapist down in St. George, and I don't have an example of his design, but he wanted like fire that would go on the side of a car in his logo. And I thought it was like one of the worst logos ever, but whoever he worked with as a designer, he just said, I've got to have that in my design. I thought it was horrible design. And so that was just the constraint with whoever the designer was came up with. So as you go through these assignments, just think of that. You've got to live with inside of the constraints and then just be creative on how can you make inside of the constraints, make it look as good as possible. So, so I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we need to talk about. Oh, so one of the things that I would like each one of you to do this week and as you go throughout the semester is try to notice good design and think about and then try to reconstruct who came up with that design and what message are they trying to communicate. So one of the things in the design process that they don't talk about in this book, and a lot of times they don't talk about it in the classes, but as you're designing something, you need to understand who the audience is. Just like I talked about whoever that physical therapist was, he was the audience. And whoever the designer was, that's all he needed to worry about was that because that physical therapist was the one paying for whatever design he wanted created. So he was the audience. Now, someone like big corporations, they're trying to have a conversation with their um, with their customers. And so they have to say, okay, what are we trying to communicate to our customer? And it's really interesting with, whether it's a person or it's a product, there is marketing strategy that goes around what they're trying to communicate. And so realize the interesting thing in this class is, and I try not to be too subjective, is like most of these projects that you're going to do, I am the audience because I'm the one making the grade. But there's also a secondary audience in this class is going to be the other people in this class because we have discussions and we talk about this. And part of the design process is getting feedback. And as you get feedback, from me, you're going to get one type of feedback. From the other students in the class, you're going to get feedback and you're going to better understand what you are doing what your design communicates. So the very first assignment, the Jack and Jill assignment, and you'll see this, is what are you trying to communicate with the images that you're given to tell this story? So through the design process, we always need to be thinking about who are we communicating with and what are we communicating. But look at especially really effective advertising. They're like it's interesting that, for instance, Nike has gotten so effective at what they're communicating that all they have to do is put their logo up there and we all recognize, okay, if someone's got the Nike logo on, we're trying to portray, you know, success and power and victory. I mean, they've just done that. They've done so well communicating their ideals that we just understand that Nike is going to be a quality product. So, and so their audience is huge, where for you in classes, and think about this in your other classes too, that the audience really is the teacher. And so what are you trying to communicate to the teacher? Like in this class, if you just throw something together really quickly and it doesn't look that good, then what are you communicating to me? I think the communication comes across that, maybe like if you don't communicate with me another way, I'm going to think, oh, the student just doesn't care. Sometimes things go crazy in people's lives. And if you communicate that to me, then I'm going to be a lot more understanding of when I get something that's not done as well if you don't have the time. Because every semester I mean, sadly, every semester I have some student that has someone in their family that passes away. And if it's someone close to you, it's devastating. And so you need to communicate that to me. And then I am going to frame that when I'm grading your assignments. But if I don't get any communication from you and I don't know that you're going through this horrible thing in your life, then for me, I'm just saying, oh, this student is just not putting in the effort. And so you can communicate to me with words. And then there's other times where students, like a few times I have seen students do, and I'm like, oh, they did this really quickly. But for some reason, they're just really good designers and maybe one assignment just worked out really well. And I've communicated that to the student. I'm like, I can tell you didn't take very much time on this, but what you did really works. And so I'm going to give you a better grade. So, but that happens less often than not. But then there's other times where I've seen students, they're just like, I'm amazed at the amount of work that they put in for this assignment. And I can tell that they're passionate about what they're doing. And obviously it's going to reflect in the grade. So I think this is, and if you watch my little video to introduce myself, this is my favorite class to teach because I get to watch all of you struggle through these design projects and I get to see all of you, stretch and get excited about design. So this is one of the things I look forward to in this class. So hopefully you are all excited about this semester, this design class, and the design principles that we learn right here at the beginning can be used not just in art, but in, if you're doing software development, if you're an architect, if you're a tradesperson and you're like this company that I've worked with a lot last year is an electrical company and they have all these electricians. And those people have to go through that same design process. They look at a problem and they say, okay, what do we need to do to solve this problem? And different people find different ways to solve those problems. And it's interesting to look through the thought process of how people have overcome problems in all these different industries. So, so I think that's it for tonight. Does anyone have any questions?
So that's hard. Yeah.
Chris, what is your question? And you could just type it into the chat.
You want to cover my?
You want to keep this to take over lunch box? Oh, no, if you don't have the introduce yourself assignment, I don't think if it's showing that it's due on this Saturday, it's really not due until next Saturday. It shouldn't be showing. Here, let's look at the calendar. Yeah, so that's another thing this first week, because we have people in and out of the class. Because if like they may have been waitlisted, a student may have been waitlisted in another section of this class, and if they can't get in, then they'll come over into this section. Let's see. Oh yeah, no, the introduce yourself isn't due until next Saturday. So I'm really pretty flexible. The initial that module 0, you need to do everything in the module 0 to progress onto anything else in the class. And so for the most part, I want to make sure all the students are through this. So this getting started quiz, your initial response, the upload your picture. So yeah, this one isn't due until January 24th. But these other 3 need to be completed before before it will actually let you get into the rest of the course. So everything through this module 0. And sometimes you will notice at the bottom as we scroll through these. Oh, I should just go into student view here. So as we go across the bottom, these get checked off. Occasionally, and I do not know why it does this, and I've talked to Canvas, and Canvas can't tell me why, is these will not get checked off. If those don't get checked off, don't worry about it. Sometimes they don't get checked off. You are not going to pass or fail this class because those don't get checked off. And sometimes they don't, and I don't know why. And Canvas can't tell me why either. So, so I think that's it. The best way to get in touch with me is through the Canvas inbox. That's and then I usually give me a day or two to respond. I think it says 24 to 48 hours to respond. As an adjunct instructor, this is a part-time job for me. And so if I have something that's crazy at my regular day job, sometimes I will miss an email today and I won't get it until tomorrow. or if you send it, like if you send it late on Saturday night, I may not see it until Monday or Tuesday, just to set the expectation on that. So, and and hopefully I've communicated to you too that I'm understanding about how life goes. Some professors or instructors are not as understanding as I am, but I've been there and I've just heard, you know, lots of stories, and so I know life can get crazy sometimes. So just let me know about that, and I will do what I can to help. So thank you everyone for joining, and we will chat with you all very soon. Yeah.